Hello, and welcome to our webinar, Work from Home Wednesdays. This is the first in a monthly series on working from home, and today's topic is parenting and professionalism. I'm Jenny Starr, and I'm the Health and Wellness Specialist for the Kansas City Public Library, and I'm joined today by Rhiannon Johnson, who is the Career Resources and Financial Literacy Specialist for the library, and Allie Bernstetter, the Youth Librarian at the Central Library. And Allie is going to present our program today, and thank you for joining us.
All right, thanks for that introduction. Like Jenny said, I'm Allie Bernstetter, and we're going to be talking about how to tackle that beast that is working from home and being a parent of a child who is learning from home as well. So that virtual learning environment. Some of us have one kiddo doing that. Some of us have two. Sometimes they're all on different schedules. It's crazy. So we're going to be talking about some out-of-the-box strategies that hopefully will be helpful for you. Just to introduce myself really quickly, let's get to the next slide here. I am a youth librarian at the Central Library, and I've got my master's in library science. I'm a former teacher, actually taught for 12 years, and some of those I taught Spanish, and some of those I was a school librarian. I'm a children's yoga teacher, and most importantly, I'm a mother of two boys. And I don't know if you guys can see, these are my two sons, Adam and Mason, and we've all been on this journey together. My husband has too. We kind of tag team some. My journey's been probably pretty similar to a lot of people's. It started in lockdown. And in this fall, we've had some sporadic times when the boys have been in quarantine, and we've all been home. So here are some of the stages that I went through. You might recognize some of these in your own experience. First, I was excited. I'm like, yeah, we get to be home. I'm a teacher. I can do this. I read all the articles because I'm a librarian. So if I don't know how to do something, I'm going to read and research and find out all the things. And then I'm going to prepare all the things. And I remember saying, I'm going to be just like Mrs. Frizzle from the Magic School Bus. So that was stage one. That lasted a couple of days. It didn't last very long. And then I entered stage two, which was exhaustion. I realized that all the articles I had read weren't enough. They maybe weren't about my kids. They were probably about other people's kids. And I kept asking, why is this so hard? I'm a teacher. I have my master's degree. I work with kids. Why is this hard? Stage three, I hit despair, right? This is where the mental health crisis came in. And I was just saying, why will this ever end? And then finally, I reached stage four, and that was adaptation. I finally accepted that not perfect is okay. Good enough is okay. And we did a lot of problem solving, a lot of self-care, and went on from there. So today we're going to talk about four things. First, we're going to talk about the really important topic about setting realistic goals. And second, we'll talk about filling your cup. And you might have heard that phrase before. If not, this is a game changer. Third, we'll talk about knowing your kid and how knowing some of the characteristics of your child, the personality quirks, and their special needs will help you. Every kid has needs. So we can apply those needs and those personality traits in our virtual learning environment. And then last, we'll talk about some tips and tricks. And I'm going to share some of mine. If you're watching this on YouTube, I would love for people to share in the comments any tips that you might have that have worked really well for you. So, setting realistic expectations. This is hard. I picked this picture because around August, I started seeing these beautiful pictures on social media of these learning spaces people created. And I love this one because it looks like it hasn't been used. That's very clear. If it had been, there'd be stuff everywhere. Everything would be knocked aside. There'd be Ninja Turtles or Legos or whatever. And yeah, it's just beautiful. But are we expecting this to work? Are we expecting it to stay like this? So we're going to talk about those realistic expectations. And these are the types of tips that I'm sure we've all seen. And it's kind of a fairy tale. All you need to do to work from home is set your office hours and give yourself a workspace and get outside and take care of yourself, right? And then all the kids need to do, we've seen all the tips, set them up a space, keep distractions to a minimum. All of this is great, but it's not enough. We know this, we've tried this. The reality looks more like this. And these are some tweets that I think we can all relate to. If you want a good laugh and you want to feel a little understood, you can look up funny tweets from parents who are working from home during the pandemic. And I could not relate to these anymore. They are funny. So in the comments section, if you'd care to share some of your funniest or most memorable work at home meeting interruption moments. If you want to think about just for yourself, how do you feel when your child interrupts your meeting? Because it's happened to all of us. And how do you feel when a coworker's child interrupts the meeting? So I'll answer these questions from my point of view. My funniest moment was my very first story time that was online. It was live on Facebook Live. And I'm in the middle of this song. And then my son runs in with his boxers on, like right through the background of the screen. And it was just, you can't unsee that. The great part about that was that you really couldn't tell. It just looked like he was wearing shorts. So, and it was okay. And it's a kids program and I just kept going. So how did I feel when that happened? I felt, oh my gosh, people are seeing him in his underwear. Oh my gosh, I don't look like a professional. But how did everyone else feel? Fine, they thought it was adorable. They thought it was cute. It made me more personable. When I ask people how they feel when a coworker's child interrupts their meeting, they love it. So, I think a lot of times we beat ourselves up over it, but sometimes it's a nice distraction. I asked my husband, who works in the web development field, about, how often does this happen? He says this happens, from time to time, some meetings more than others. So, well, what do you think when it happens? He says it's cute. It gives us something to smile about. So don't give yourself too hard of a time when it happens. But we will talk about some ways later to reduce those number of interruptions and hopefully to kind of set up some systems to make them a little bit easier and smoother. All right, so some of these unrealistic expectations that we don't even realize we're setting, but they're in our head, might look something like this. And I'm gonna kind of move my thing here. Everyone will be as productive as they are at work or school. That's unrealistic. We can't expect that. Both parents and kids will always be joyful, patient, disciplined, and perfect. We will thrive mentally, physically, emotionally. I put physically on there twice. And last, we will manage everything so well that there'll never be a need for anyone to interrupt a meeting, class, or call. So sometimes we have to take a hard look at what we are expecting to happen. Are we expecting perfection? Because we're not going to get it. And we can actually learn to manage things really well. But these are some things we need to keep in mind to keep being realistic about our expectations. First, parents are essentially working two jobs at the same time. So we are working at home, our kids are learning, and we are still parents. So we're doing the teaching job, and we're doing our regular job. So there's no way we're gonna be able to be as productive. And that's okay. Kids aren't even gonna be as productive because they're not in the same type of environment as they usually are. And I don't know about you, but my kids always, when they're at school, they get a lot more done and they follow directions better for other people. So that's true of a lot of people. Let's look at the second one. It's important to keep in mind that everyone, kids and parents, they're going to have the same struggles they usually do, but like a lot of people are saying, we are experiencing collective trauma. So there's going to be some extra struggles. We have to spend extra time taking care of ourselves and helping our kids take care of ourselves so that we can manage all these struggles. Third, as a family, we will use pre-planned strategies to reduce video call interruptions, but sometimes there may be some interruptions. And we'll talk about some of those strategies here in a bit. So setting realistic expectations is the first thing we talked about. Now we're going to talk about how to fill your cup. Sometimes I hear this called a love tank, and sometimes I hear it called a bucket. And on your resource sheet, you'll find a Have You Filled Your Bucket Today, a book that a lot of teachers use. So some of you have kids who may have read that book in class. This is a popular concept for elementary schools to teach. But the important concept is whatever you call it, everyone has kind of this reservoir of energy, and it can get drained really quickly. If you don't fill your cup first as a parent, you can't really give to your kid what they need. So let's talk more about these emotional cups. Imagine every child and adult has a cup that needs to be filled. And you fill that with love and affection, security, and attention. But when a child's cup gets too empty, gets close to empty, you're going to start seeing them misbehaving, trying to get attention. They might be really energetic and running around everywhere. They might be whiny or grumpy. And sometimes what they need is to have their cup filled. So the thing to remember is that during these COVID times, everything is different. And the things that typically fill a cup, like playing at recess and their friends and having lots of one-on-one time and love and affection, those things are harder to come by. You have to be really intentional about finding ways to fill those kiddos' cups. And there's lots of things that empty cups that are just part of COVID. Loneliness and isolation, right? And doing what they're forced to do or they hate to do. A lot of kids don't really like virtual learning. And it's stressful, what we're experiencing right now. It's different than normal. A lot of kids can't go to their normal activities. They can't go see their friends. So we've got a lot of empty cups out there. So when we're thinking about the virtual learning and working at home environment, we're going to see some specific types of symptoms, I guess you could call it, for children with empty cups and parents with empty cups. And you're going to see this on the screen here. And I'm not going to read all of these to you, but children with empty cups aren't going to be able to be focused or productive. They're going to struggle with behavior. They're going to be the kids that are blah, in virtual class. They may not feel as good about themselves. They might give up easier, and they might be really clingy. Parents are going to be more stressed out. They're more likely to have expectations that aren't reasonable. They're more likely to be irritable and not as patient. And then we've got depression, anxiety, and burnout, which are all really, really, really prevalent right now. And so that's something to be aware of, is realizing, when is your own cup empty? With full cups, though, we have an easier time, both adults and children, staying calm and focused and productive. And we can see there's a lot of benefits. Kids are going to be much more successful in a virtual learning environment when they're cooperative and focused, when they're able to persevere through difficult assignments, when they can work on this independent work without distracting others. And parents, when they have full cups, they're able to help their kids and be patient and intentional, and they're less likely to struggle with things like anxiety and burnout. I know when I am my best mom, it's when I have taken time to take care of myself. And when I am the mom that, we all are sometimes, or parent, we're a little more frustrated, we a little more, less present. That's when I have an empty cup. So it is worth the investment of making sure our cups are full and our children's cups are full. So here's some ways to fill your cup, and you want to make sure you fill them first, because you can't pour from an empty cup. So in the morning, and gosh, this was hard for me because I hate waking up early. It's important that you create some kind of routine before your kids wake up. And you don't have to do this for the rest of your life, but during COVID times, if you are at home working and virtual learning, this is really, really, really important and really helpful. And I'm going to talk about some morning routine ideas on the next couple of slides that might be helpful. But 30 minutes, if you want, you can take up to an hour of time. May sound like a lot, but you can actually do quite a bit in that time. You can do a 7-minute workout from Harvard. You can do some meditation. You can make yourself a little cup of tea or coffee and just journal, watch the sunrise, thinking about things that fill your cup. You will need refills throughout the day. Okay, so COVID's draining our cups a lot faster. So think about what music you play in your house. This can be music that helps you and your kids. What's calming? Think about movement that you can include in your day. A lot of people, their love language is affection. So getting hugs from your kids or your partner is really helpful. Maybe making some hot tea, taking a reading break, whatever fills your cup. That's just, quick 5 minutes can make a huge difference. And in the evening, it's tempting right now to fill our evenings with getting a bunch of stuff done, but it's really, really important that we give ourselves some downtime. And it's important for our kids too. And one of the things I've done this fall that's made the biggest difference is creating a really loving bedtime ritual for myself. And doing those things every night really helps me to prioritize my sleep and sleep deeply. And I need that. So I wanted to share with you a strategy that might be helpful for some people who maybe haven't had kind of a morning routine before. So this is kind of a savers, an idea, a structure that came from the book, The Miracle Morning by Hal, and I think it's pronounced Erod. And I will be upfront that I haven't read the book yet, but I do have it on hold. But this strategy, it looks like a lot, but you can actually do it in about 20 to 30 minutes if you're organized. You don't have to take a long time to do each of these things. And I will show you kind of how I do it. So first of all, I struggle to wake up in the morning. So I use an app called Alarmy. And Alarmy is great because you have to complete some kind of task that you set up before it will stop beeping. So for me, it will keep beeping until I go to the bathroom, turn on the light, and I scan the barcode on the back of my lotion. And there are different challenges, but this is the way I get myself up. By the time I've walked across the room and been in the bright bathroom light, I'm up. Then I sit down in the bathroom, just on the floor, and I do these, a few of these things. So the first thing I do is I open my Insight Timer app, which has a bunch of free meditations, and I do a morning meditation. That takes me typically about 8 minutes. Sometimes I choose a longer one, but 8 minutes is what I do if I'm kind of in a rush. Then I do some affirmations. I have started using this app called Think Up, where you get to choose your affirmations and it'll just kind of like read it to you. So it's a great thing to do right after your meditation. Then I visualize and thinking about athletes and performance. There are some incredible studies that show how visualizing your day going smoothly or visualizing yourself performing well can truly make a difference. It's something in the brain that is happening that it sees itself imagined in your head being successful, and then it knows that it's possible and it can happen. So that's a quick thing you can do. I'm a yoga teacher, so if I am taking my time, I like to do some stretches and do some sun salutations. But if I'm in a hurry, I like Harvard's 7-minute workout. And Harvard University came up with these body weight activities. You do push-ups for 30 seconds. You do several different activities like that, just for 30 seconds. And you do those over the span of 7 minutes, and you get a really good workout in. So that's a great way to wake up your body and your mind. I do my reading in the shower. I listen to a motivational audiobook with my Libby app. So there's information about all these apps, by the way, on your resource sheet. And then a 5-minute gratitude journal, which I often will do first, right at the beginning of the day. I find that by waking up and journaling what I am grateful for, it changes my perspective on the entire day. It sets me in this beautiful mood. And I'll be honest that savers sounds like a lot, and it is a lot to start with. So if you're considering a morning ritual, maybe just start with a cup of hot tea and a meditation. Maybe start with a cup of hot tea and a 5-minute gratitude journal. Pick something that you think will be high impact for filling your cup in the morning. And another thing I saw that I really liked, and this is about filling your cup as a parent, is from the book, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. This book's been out for quite a while, and you can check it out from the Kansas City Library. But somebody actually came up with this chart, and I've seen some different versions of it, that help you apply those love languages to yourself with self-care. And the idea between the 5 love languages, if you haven't heard of it before, is that every person gives and receives love in specific ways. And some of them are your preferred ways. So for me, for example, my 2 top love languages are quality time and words of affirmation. And I can see in some of these suggestions that these are things that really do fill my cup, and that's partially why the savers really works well for me. But my husband's is physical touch, so he's more into like the soft blankets and physical activity and that kind of thing. So if you can be intentional about maybe journaling, what are some things you can do to fill your cup, to use your love languages to fill your cup? It might make a big difference. All right, so we've talked about filling the parents' cup. Now let's talk about how to fill your children's cups. In the morning, they are going to need a little fill up as well. So I find with my own children, whether it's COVID times or regular time, if I wake them up and say, time to get up, and just expect them to get up and going right away, I'm going to be met with some resistance. But if I wake them up and start the day with them with some snuggles, they are huge snugglers. They want the blankets and the snuggles and the hugs. That makes all the difference in my kids being cooperative. When they know they're loved and they get some affection and they start their day off in that loving, positive, nurturing way, makes a world of difference. I also like to play some feel-good music for my kids, and lately my kids have been really into Zelda. So I've been playing some Zelda music, but we also had fun. We watched Into the Woods, which is one of my favorite musicals. So we've been listening to that soundtrack, and find music that you and your kids both like, and you might be surprised to see them dancing around and having fun getting ready in the morning. I love playfully getting ready for the day. So there's an amazing book that I read, and we don't have it at the library anymore because it's an older book, but you might be able to find it on Amazon. And it's called Playful Parenting. And it is a book about finding opportunities throughout your day to be playful with your child. And what I love about this, it was a total game changer for my youngest son, who he has some high functioning autism. And so it's really hard for him to focus and to stay focused. So instead of getting on to him and just reminding over and over and over again, we found that by doing playful parenting, everything was easier. So here's an example of this. When we're cleaning rooms, for example, he hates cleaning up the room like all kids, and he plays with a lot of things. He was dumping everything out. But we found that if I wore my sweatshirt and I acted like a monster eating his toys in a fun way, then he would try to beat me to that toy. So I'd say, nom, 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 Ninja Turtle, nom, nom, nom. And then I'd put it down my hoodie and then act like I was holding my tummy. And then he would just laugh and laugh and laugh. And then in order for me to give that toy up, he would have to shake me and then the toy would be puked out. As you know, that's just what my boys love. And so we found that we could make a game out of picking up toys. That was really fun. So you can make up games as you get ready, as you get your kids ready. When you're doing that, you're filling their cup. You're giving them playful, loving, nurturing affection. You can fill up their cup, refill it throughout the day. And some of the ways to do that are really similar to the things that we had on the parent list. Music therapy again, movement, snuggles, tickle wars, pillow fights. And don't forget about positive attention, really affirming when they're doing things well, when they're getting things done. Some kids really benefit from a reward chart. So they get stickers we'll talk more about that here in a little bit. But that can be really helpful in filling their cup, especially if their love language is affirmation. My son really thrived on the high fives. When he would get one math problem done, it was a big high five. And then in the evening, after school, don't talk about school anymore. Give them a break and spend some quality time together. 10 minutes of one-on-one Lego, that makes a world of difference. Setting up a video chat with a friend that they miss, that can be really helpful to refill their social needs. And one thing that we did with our boys was we created a proud of you notebook. And so each of my kids has a little red notebook in their bookshelf. And each night I would write like 5 things I was proud of them for. And you can just tell them what you're proud of them for. And that's really nice too. But I have caught my boys actually getting that notebook out and rereading those if they're feeling bad or just for fun. And I think it's just a really loving way to affirm them and nurture them. Also, crafting a loving bedtime routine for your kids is important. And we see in all those articles that structure anytime you have kids is great, but especially during these COVID times. Having a regular bedtime, consistent time that they will be going to sleep and waking up is really helpful, and it's helpful for adults. And there's a wonderful book, you can get it from the library, called The 5 Love Languages of Children. And I'm not going to read this, but I just want you to be aware that just as adults have these love languages, they actually start showing up in kids around elementary age. And you might already kind of have a sense for maybe which of these love languages might be the ones that are most prevalent for your child. I know one of my sons has like 3 of these. He loves quality time, physical touch, and words of affirmation. And the other one loves physical touch and receiving gifts. So just being aware of that really helps you to cater your care and your filling their cup to your specific kid. And I just can't emphasize how much filling the cup makes your whole day run smoother. Kids are less likely to interrupt your meetings or beg for attention if they feel like their cup is full. All right, so we're moving on to the 3rd section of our presentation today, and that is knowing your kids. And I love this picture because we have one wild, exuberant, outgoing, energetic child, and then we have one child who's maybe a little overwhelmed, too much stimulus, and all kids are different. So by understanding how your kids are different or how how they tick. You can actually cater their virtual learning needs even more. So there's this spectrum that most people are aware of called the introvert extrovert spectrum. All the way from introverts, like stereotypical introverts, they like to be by themselves, they don't talk a lot, and they draw energy from, oh, you know what? I have this backwards. I'm so, that's so funny. I'm gonna pause this because I made a little mistake. There we go, all done. Extroverts draw energy from being around people and activity. So these are talkative people. They typically like to go to lots of activities and parties. And if you have a child who's an extrovert, here are some things you can keep in mind. Extroverts aren't going to feel super comfortable working alone. So a lot of those articles say to have like a devoted space for school, and that's great and that's true. But if it's in their room by themselves, extroverts are going to feel like they're being punished. So they feel better working in a common space with other siblings or parents. Extroverts will need some time to chat between classes and activities, and that's going to give them energy. So creating some kind of way for them to talk to you or talk to siblings between their classes is going to be really important. And their cup is drained when they have not a lot of interaction from others, and that's going to make them feel more frustrated and checked out. Introverts, on the other hand, are drained by being around people and activity. So they're kids that are going to feel more comfortable actually being in their room alone working. They are going to need quiet time. Being in some of those classes can be really overwhelming. I know for one of my sons, it was so hard for him having this whole screen of his peers, and they were all doing silly things, or not all of them. But it was just really overwhelming for him. So having some quiet time alone between the classes and assignments really made a big difference for him. And yeah, they get overwhelmed with too much noise or activity. Here are some other things to think about when you're thinking about helping your kid be successful. One is kinesthetic learners. Kinesthetic learners are learners who learn through doing. They can't sit still typically, they need to move. So for these types of kids, and I actually have one of them at home, I've got one of those bouncy chairs. So it's like a bouncy ball chair. And that helps my kiddo because it can give him something to do. He can bounce, and that helps him to focus. Fidget toys, there's all different types of fidgets, not just the fidget spinners, but fidget toys are great for some kids. There are some stretchy bands you can put on the bottom of a chair for kids to put their feet on to kind of bounce their feet or put their feet on the ground if they can't reach. And the only way to figure out if that works for your kid is really just trial and error, but it can be a really game changer in helping kids who have a hard time sitting still, helping them focus on their learning. Some kids have something called performance anxiety, and this is really common with kids who are in the gifted program or kids who maybe like honor students. They really tend to struggle if they don't have the structure from school. They might feel a little shy about participating in class. They're really going to struggle between the classes because they don't have their teacher to ask all those questions to. So having some regular interaction between the child and the teacher may be really helpful for them. Some learning platforms allow students to send messages to their teachers. Otherwise, an email might be helpful. And then you've got the kids who are super social, especially the class clowns, and they are going to struggle to fill their social needs at home. So they're going to start sometimes acting out in class. And something that might help that is in the evenings, having some video chats with their friends or times to play games online, some time for them to interact with each other to get some of that out of their system. that often helps kids be able to stay focused and behave in class. And then this is the tough one. A lot of kids have learning disabilities or special learning needs. If you know that your child has an IEP, an individual education plan, or a 504, or qualifies for one, this is where it's really important for you as a parent to understand what your kiddo needs. This is a great time to talk to their teachers or their case managers about how to adapt the assignments and meet their needs at home. My youngest, he has a paraprofessional that sits near him at school and helps him to keep focused, answers his questions, etc. So there's really no way for him to sit by himself and really get a lot done. So we learned to structure our days so that in the mornings, I would be sitting next to him and doing my work and available to help at any time. And then in the afternoons, my husband would switch with me. And that really made a huge difference in his ability to be successful. And adapting those assignments, a lot of times teachers will say, you know, they don't have to do all of the math problems. Have them do this through this. And that can make it a little more doable. And then a lot of kids receive special services at home, like speech therapy or occupation therapy. So those are things that you want to talk to your teacher to discuss how they can work on those things at home. It can be really difficult to replicate at home, but it's something to think about. All right, so we just talked about how working with knowing our kids and understanding their personalities can be really helpful in helping them be successful at home with virtual learning, which in turn means that they don't have to ask us as many questions. They can work more independently and are less likely to need to interrupt us or kind of pop in and say something funny in a meeting. So lastly, we're going to talk about some tips and tricks that maybe you haven't seen before. You may have seen some of these in some of the articles, but they are all tips that are helpful for me. And in the comment box, I'd love to hear some strategies that really worked for you and your family. So some tips and tricks that work for me. Number one, sticky notes. Sticky notes are amazing, and they can be really useful in the virtual learning environment. If you have a child who's able to write well, they can actually leave you a question or a message by writing it on a sticky note and just putting it on your desk whenever you are working. That could say, I need help right now, or can you pause the meeting or whatever, or it could say something like, when you're done, Mom, can you help me with math? Another really effective way of filling each other's cups is making a game of leaving each other nice notes or funny messages and drawings. And you would not believe how much fun this could be. My kids like to write, what was that word they would write? I can't remember. It was some kind of inside joke with their dad, and they would write it on sticky note and they would hide it. But you can actually interact with your child and they can interact with you in a fun way that fills your cups by leaving sticky notes for each other while you're working. Just walk by their learning space, even if they're in class. Well, maybe not if they're in class, and just drop them a note. I'm proud of you. You're doing great. And another thing I've seen that I think is a great tip is, you know, most people have their kids' schedules with all of their different lessons and their live lessons. But it's really helpful in the morning before you get started to let them know when you're going to be in a meeting and when you might be unavailable, so that they know when you're going to get out of the meeting and when you'll be available to help them again. So having that on a marker board with your schedule, their schedule, next to their learning space can be really helpful in allowing them to know, you know, when can I interrupt and when can't I, or when is my mom or dad going to be more available to help me with my math. Sticker chart. So we talked about this just a little bit earlier, but I know my youngest son thrives on a chart. So on the chart that we have at home, we have his specific subjects, or sometimes we'll make specific assignments. And whenever he finishes each one, he gets to pick out a sticker, which we picked out some fun ones, and he puts it on this chart next to each thing. And then at the end of the day, he might get a prize that could be like quality time with a parent doing something they really love, or it could be like a small prize, or maybe at the end of the week, it could be something a little bigger. So I know that there are differing opinions on rewarding kids, but I will say for a lot of kids, giving them positive recognition and catching them being good can make a huge difference. And it doesn't have to be an object, it can be special time. Another thing that is really helpful is affirming their feelings. So my oldest son really struggled with the anxiety of school at home. And whenever he would talk to me, I made very sure that I wasn't just saying, well, it's okay, cheer up. They don't need that. They need to know that they're heard and seen and understood. They need to know that it's okay to feel that way and that a lot of people are feeling like that right now. And then after you made sure they feel heard, then you can provide some support, help them problem solve. Giving them a positive affirmation is really helpful sometimes. My youngest son, I suggested that he say, we can do hard things, or I can do hard things. And that really helped fuel him to complete his math problem that he was really struggling with. All right, the last 3 tips and tricks I'd like to share with you are, number 1, strategic playfulness. So we talked a little bit about putting playfulness into your morning, but it's interesting how a quick pillow fight or a Nerf gun battle in the house, or asking your child to do something in a silly voice instead of your serious voice can help fill everybody's cups and make the day go smoother. Another thing that can be helpful is being flexible. So my kiddos are really picky about what physical activity they like to do. So sometimes if I know as a teacher, if I understand the goal of the virtual PE lesson, for example, I will allow them to do an alternate activity as long as it's getting their heart rate up and meeting that same goal. So if it's possible, if it's an assignment they don't have to turn in, and they really just are dreading doing that thing, sometimes it's possible to adapt. And speaking of PE, one great resource that you might like that's online for free is called Go Noodle. It is one of my favorite resources as a parent. It's very popular in schools, and it's a nonprofit organization, I believe, so it's all free, and they specialize in getting kids moving. They have some really fun, hilarious songs and dances. They have some indoor recess activities, and I know the PE teachers at my kids' school really like it. So check out Go Noodle. Lastly, using available resources. So at the Kansas City Public Library and many other library systems, we have something called BrainFuse. And BrainFuse is a phenomenal resource that's available for free through your library card. And one of the things it offers is free live tutoring. So let's say your kiddo is really struggling with math and they need the math to be explained in a different way. Sometimes getting on BrainFuse can be helpful because they can actually interact with a live tutor. And a lot of times that tutor can explain things in a different way that helps guide them instead of doing the math problem for them. If you have a student or a child who is doing a writing project, they also allow you to submit their rough drafts to BrainFuse, and they'll return it with comments on how to improve, etc. And so that is a fantastic resource that I would highly recommend that you use. All right, in the comment section, I highly recommend checking to see what other people have posted. And if you have other tips and tricks that have worked well for your family, go ahead and share that. One thing to think about for yourself is, in this presentation, what's one resource that has been helpful to you that might help others? And you can share that in the comments. And one strategy that you heard today, either from me or from a parent in the comments, that you plan to try. I sincerely wish you all the best of luck as we finish out this school year. Got a few months left, and I hope that you are able to use some of these strategies. Pick just a couple to start, and I hope that it changes the dynamics in your home as you work from home and your child does virtual learning at school. If you'd like some more information, this is my email address. I work at the Kansas City Public Library, and there's a resource sheet available at this web address that you can use to access just a page full of resources. Thank you all for joining us, and we will be doing more workshops in this series next month. Every month on a Wednesday, we will have a Wellness Wednesday workshop, so join us next time. Thank you. Bye.